Hey, what's up, guys? This is KRANE. You're listening to the Passionate DJ podcast. I hope you enjoy my interview.
What's up, everybody? David here from Passionate DJ, and I am super excited because today we are presenting to you our exclusive interview with KRANE. Now, KRANE is a DJ producer from Oakland, California, and is actually currently on his own headlining tour. He just came out with his full-length album titled Fallout, and he was signed to Steve Aoki's Dimock label. Now, KRANE sound is a bit of a mix between hip-hop and electronic music. Very festival-friendly sound, kind of big room, really intense in your face, that trappy sound. It's really a lot of fun. But we actually find out in the course of the interview that he has foundations in jazz music and modern classical and stuff like that. So definitely check this out. I think you're going to really appreciate his insight. Also, while you're watching, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and hit that notifications bell up there in the corner of the screen so that you get notified when we post great new interviews just like this one. And if you want to be on the go, you can subscribe to the Passionate DJ podcast on your mobile device in Apple Podcasts or wherever you like to consume podcasts, or just hit up passionatedj.com and listen to this episode. Links will be in the description box below. All right, without any further introduction, let's get on to our interview with KRANE.
I guess the first place I want to start is, how do you kind of refer to yourself? Are you a DJ, performer, producer, musician? You know, who is KRANE?
All of the above. I
Okay.
mean, I came into this through production, I guess.
Okay.
Well, I back up even farther, through music. So originally a musician, I'd say, and grew up playing music, playing instruments in little jazz groups, and just kind of messing around. And then, I wound up finding production probably like 3 or 4 years ago, and actually was completely oblivious to the whole like producer as artist scene, or like DJ and stuff like that. So yeah, I was just kind of making beats and stuff like that. Then discovered the DJ thing. I remember when I got a booking request that just came in through someone finding me on SoundCloud, and actually I think that's where I started.
So you weren't even pursuing gigs at the time?
As also a DJ as well, but it took a little while because I didn't really realize what was going on. I was just putting like hip hop beats and stuff like that online, so I didn't really think too much about it. But now I consider myself a producer, a DJ, musician. Yeah.
What about the name KRANE? Where did that come from?
Oh, that's just my last name.
Okay. Perfect.
I mean, I didn't start this thing thinking about becoming an artist or having a career in this, and so I just picked that name just because it was my last name. And,
okay. The only reason I asked is because I knew it changed slightly, right? Like it used to be. Yeah,
there was no A in it because that username on SoundCloud was taken.
Okay.
And you used to not be able to double up, so I didn't. Again, this is my whole journey is kind of like I didn't really plan this. So then, when I started taking it more seriously and, people started referring to me, I realized no one knew how to fucking say my name. And I don't blame them. There was there's this letters stuck together that don't really make a whole lot of sense. So I didn't go out and show people the name and be like, how would you say this? So when I finally realized what was going on, I knew I had to put the A back in. It took a little while because I kind of procrastinated on it, but yeah, eventually put it back in.
So people were calling you Kern and Corn and stuff like that?
Oh my God, all sorts of stuff. And I felt bad. People would argue on Reddit about it, I gotta say it, and I just felt guilty. I was like, this is totally my fault, guys. We're gonna fix this. So yeah.
Well, we kind of touched on the different facets of KRANE as a performer and a musician. I wonder if you could kind of describe what you use. Like, what's your live rig? What do you perform on?
It's just DJing right now. I mean, again, I got into this kind of late. When I started out, it was Ableton sets, just because I had no idea how to DJ, no access to CDJs or anything like that. I had a buddy who had an APC, which is a hardware controller for Ableton. I really quickly, in a matter of a couple of weeks, figured out how to set up a really crude DJ set in Ableton. It was terrible. My first show was awful. And I stuck with Ableton probably for a year until things started getting pretty serious, and then switched over to CDJs, which just makes so much more sense for touring.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, if you're just DJing, like APCs and all that stuff makes sense if you're, triggering loops or doing stuff like that's kind of a hybrid live, not live setup. But for me, it just didn't make any sense to keep doing Ableton and worrying about my laptop crashing and stuff. So now it's just CDJs.
Okay. So I apologize. We kind of jumped right into the interview. I'm David. This is my co-host, Tony.
What's up, man?
Hey, guys. I'm Zach.
He's got some... is it okay if we call you Zach?
Yeah.
On the show. Okay, cool. Tony's got some questions for you as well, so he'll be jumping in here. You want to throw one at him here?
Yeah. So you said you were producing first and then became a DJ. What is your opinion on the DJ aspect of it? How do you feel about the DJ as opposed to the producer?
It's weird. That's a great question, by the way. I have a lot of kind of ambivalent feelings about it because, again, coming from a musician's background, it was a little bit weird at first. Getting used to the idea that what I was doing on stage was not the same thing as what I was doing in the studio. And I think, I came from playing guitar and bass, and that's, you get used to like what you're doing on stage is what you're doing when you're songwriting and recording and all that stuff. And so there's no gap really. So with producing and DJing, there was a gap. And, as a producer, my craft was pretty far along. And then as a DJ, it was pretty far behind. So I was kind of insecure about it for a little while until I got used to it, until I really understood what it was all about, how to do it well, how to also make it my music and my set. And then, how to appreciate that this isn't the same thing as a live concert. This isn't like going and seeing a jazz trio. This is about the environment. It's about the show. It's about interacting with the crowd. And it's about giving them the opportunity to hear your music the way it was meant to be heard as well, which are all things that are not necessarily the same thing that, a musician does when they get on stage, depending on the type of music. So, yeah. I'm still sort of sorting it out and also thinking ahead to, how to pull it away a little bit from DJing sometimes into more of a live act. But, until then, I've gotten pretty comfortable with being a DJ, with DJing and, putting on a really great DJ show, which, again, that's what people are coming out for the most part.
I like that answer of you're trying to have the crowd hear it the way it's meant to be heard, and I like that your focus is on the listener experience. That's a great answer.
I mean, when I know a lot of producers, for some of the songs that we're making, they're meant to be a part of a set, as opposed to a band that gets up there, you play the song whole, fades out, a little bit of silence, the next song. With what we're doing, it's meant to fit into a set, and there's certain songs and certain things you do to like create breaks and stuff like that. But hearing your music in a DJ set, hearing drops switched out and hearing it edited and looped in cool ways, that's a large part of what a lot of this music is being written for. So that is kind of where you're supposed to hear it.
Having said that, how do you actually prepare for a set? When I normally go into a set, I've been a DJ for a little over 25 years. And when I go to play a set, I throw, depending on the set time, I throw 30, 40 songs in the playlist, and, I kind of freestyle and go with the crowd. How do you prepare for a set?
Well, so again, it sort of depends on the kind of show. I'd say there's more kind of freestyle in two situations. One, when I'm support, or when it's a really soft ticket night. It's not like I'm the headliner and people are really coming out there for my music, because then I am more responding to the crowd, and I can't anticipate what they're going to be like and what they're going to be into. Now, for like this last tour, this is the first headline tour I've been doing, right? So, I know pretty much for certain that the majority of people are coming out for my music. And while the flow of the set might change, I know of my songs, the ones that are in the set that I want to get through, and I know which ones kind of fit together. So there's some of that improv taken away, but something we've been doing on the tour to kind of bring some of that back is bringing the artists up at the end, doing some back-to-back, and playing around a little bit. Some of the sets, they haven't kicked us off the stage, and they wound up being like 2-hour sets, where the last hour is just back-to-back. And so those are really fun opportunities after I've kind of, presented my case to the audience, and, really the best that I can put together, some of which was just put together ahead of time, to just play around and experiment. So it's really a mix, and it depends on the situation.
What about your more general musical history? You mentioned jazz a minute ago, and I feel like I read somewhere that you had a history with jazz music. Does that play a role in your music now, and where do you come from in that respect?
Well, I mean, like, not a serious jazz history. I didn't go to music school or anything like that. I just grew up playing it and taking lessons and playing with friends, and then in college playing in some ensembles. But I'd say less from a technical perspective and more just for what I gravitate towards aesthetically. Getting into jazz, I think, starts to open you up to a lot of Latin music, a lot of world music, a lot of Persian music, a lot of modern classical music, and things like that. So I'd say it most significantly influences me when I'm looking for harmonies and melodies and sound design, and reaching outside of the genre and outside of what everyone's doing to bring in, some other aesthetics. And I think that's important.
That's cool, because I think of jazz as being like a polar opposite of the kind of music that we tend to talk about in these conversations as far as structurally and stuff, because if we're talking, say, something like, we'll just call it dance music in general, there has to be kind of a repetitive element to it for it to do what it does, right? And jazz is very improvisational. So does that influence you more as a DJ or as a producer? Does that make sense? As a producer, certainly. I mean, like, getting on stage, playing jazz is just a completely different mindset. So, maybe eventually as a performer, if I can get to a point where I can really invest in a live show, and maybe there are some improvisational aspects, but, for the most part, it's a very different approach to, like, stagecraft and performing. Yeah.
Between, being in a jazz group or a band for that matter, and DJing. So it's, squarely in the production aspect does it influence me.
So you're a full-time musician now, but what did you do before, and how did you get here?
So I went to college for industrial design, which is like, kind of describe it like architecture stuff.
Okay.
I graduated, and over the course of some years, really developed a career as a designer and a consultant in the Bay Area. And again, like, I had no dreams of doing music. I mean, I've always been into music. I've always listened to it and been a fan. I didn't really listen to electronic music, and then I remember my brother showed me SoundCloud and what was going on. I started listening to kind of what was going on in the hip-hop beats and trap music and stuff like that, especially coming out of LA. And so I had a buddy that, produced a little bit. I just got the software and was just messing around with it. And I was just making beats, just totally for fun. Again, I had no idea. I'd never been to a show, never been to a festival of this kind of music. When I went out and saw live music, it was like I'd go see a jazz group, or I'd go to the Bluegrass Festival in Golden Gate Park or whatever. I wasn't a fan per se yet. And then I just started getting into it and producing and, putting this stuff online. And it was a fun project, hitting up blogs, kind of growing it, but still, like, not trying to make a career of it at all. I'm like a project person. If I'm going to do something, I want to go for it.
Right.
So, it just grew, and then booking started coming in, and, everything kind of grew incrementally, as well as my education about, like, what was this whole scene about.
So I know it's a kind of a different type of design, but since you have that kind of aesthetic mindset, does that mean that you do your own artwork and logos and that kind of design stuff?
Yeah, I do you cut out for a second, but I think you asked me if I do my own, like, branding and things like that. And I do. I've done most all of it to date, with the exception of a couple things where I've gotten some help.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, that's been an important part of it. I think, I appreciate the whole package that includes the visual experience of the music, whether that's seeing a cover or seeing the live visuals or whatever. And I think design made me appreciate all the different touch points and making sure that everything feels like it's a part of one experience. And then, it just also provided me with a technical know-how to be able to implement it myself, which is great. I don't have to, like, convey my vision to someone else and hope what they reflect back is captures it.
So that's important to you from the perspective of expressing yourself as an artist, or is it like, are you just a control freak, or like, how does
Both.
that? Both? Okay.
Definitely both. But I think the first is more important because,
okay.
I remember growing up how important it was, the unboxing experience of albums or the website,
Right.
or the promo material or the posters and the shirts. And I remember how important it was that it all felt like one identity, And if I was really into this band, I wanted that to be reflected equally. And then I was really excited for what the next art was going to be. And if it was totally different, it kind of irked me. If it felt like an evolution, that was really exciting. So, yeah, I think about that a lot.
So you went from not realizing that you wanted to be a DJ to playing the biggest electronic music festival in the United States, which is Ultra, coming up. That's got to feel pretty damn good.
You have to catch yourself and take a step back and think back a year or two ago for it to feel good. Because right now, the weird thing is, even though like 5 years ago, I literally could not have told you I'd be doing this or known what this was, everything starts to feel kind of normal. And that's a good thing and a bad thing. One, it's good because, I had really bad stage fright. I was never a performer. I never thought like, oh man, I don't know if I could do this in the first year or two because it was so nerve-wracking. And now it feels normal and it's okay. And I can get on stage and my heart rate is normal and I feel comfortable and I feel confident so I can put on a good show. But on the flip side, everything feels normal is bad because, you make a comment like that and I'm like, yeah, I'm not that excited for Ultra. It's awesome. I know rationally it's awesome, but I have to like sit here and be like, wow, a year or two ago, this was the benchmark. This was like a goal, and I'm achieving that. So yeah, it's that balance of like appreciating where you are, but
Do you find it hard to stop and smell the roses?
Definitely, yeah. There's still like a lot of stress that comes with just being self-employed, whether that's in this kind of work or something else, and not having the utter confidence that in a year things are going to be really secure. So yeah, it's good to stop and to be happy and appreciate where you are. At the same time, I don't want to become complacent because I want to be able to keep doing this, and I don't feel like I have such a solid foundation that I can just kick back and let things continue on their own.
Well, so you brought up Ultra, and I'll take it to another extreme. What's it like to work with Dimock? How'd that come about?
We had just been lightly in touch with them and some other labels, and when the album started coming together, we, when I say we, it's like me, my manager, have been talking about pretty much up until this point everything we've done is self-released, and we've built a really good network through PR people that can help us out, contacts with channels. You really have to develop all these relationships yourself. And so it was a curiosity of like, what if we teamed up with a label? Like, what can they bring to the table? Because, you're signing off ownership of your music. You're signing away a lot of money potentially too. And you're hoping that in return, you're going to get, a bigger Rolodex, more connections, more people hearing the music that may not have heard it. So we had been in touch with Dimock for a little while, kind of on each other's radar. And, through the conversations with them, I think one, culturally and just personality-wise, it was a really good fit. There's so kind and generous and enthusiastic. That's really important to hear that enthusiasm from a label. And so yeah, it was an experiment, and I would say it was really successful. And I'm really grateful for the work that they put in. And it was worth trading off some of the ownership.
Earlier in the interview, we brought up the idea of you performing for the audience, the listener experience. What do you want the audience to feel like when you're performing live? Do you have kind of a goal or a vision or an aim there, or is it just whatever I can do to make them party? What's your approach there?
I think that I want the audience to walk away from a set and feel like, if it's an hour-long set, that they got 2 hours of experience in it, and I think that is achieved for me, and I think a lot about contrast. Not just like bringing in some surprises into the set, but like integrating lots of kind of crescendos and then mellower moments and bringing it back up so that it doesn't feel like, I'm just doing the classic trap DJ thing of, 16 bar breaks and 16 bar drops and repeat it over and over again. And then maybe once in a while, a long break for the vocal or something. I want it to feel like sonically they heard some things that were unfamiliar and provided a lot of, I guess, points of interest. So when they step away from it, they don't just remember that one mellow part or something. It feels like there was a bit more of a journey. And I think, the music I write naturally caters towards that, because I do like making a lot of more extended breakdowns or, drops that aren't super high energy. And then I like making those too. So, yeah, I guess I like the idea that, they walk away and they feel like, even if they heard the same amount of songs in someone else's 1 hour set, it feels like they traversed more landscapes. So it feels fuller.
So then conversely, and you kind of hinted at this, but when you're playing your live shows, how much do those live shows influence the music that you make at home or in the studio?
Oh, a lot. I mean, actually, I work a lot on the road and from hotels and airports, and being able to go from playing a show to, that same night or the next day, being able to hop into production software while you have that environment, in mind and in short-term memory is really helpful when you're creating that kind of music. I DJ a lot of unreleased music that I'm still working on, so I can hear how it sounds and, make mental notes and go back and fix it up for the next night. So, yeah, I mean, until I was touring regularly, I'd have to imagine hearing these songs in those environments a lot. And there was a lot more kind of guesswork about would it work. But, now that I'm touring so much, being able to actually just stick that stuff in your set and work on it while you're on the road is enormously inspiring in terms of making sure that it's, especially that it's simple enough and it's catchy enough. And if you can get a crowd to start, bouncing or dancing or whatever to a song they've never heard before in this kind of music, that's a really big achievement.
Yeah.
It's not like house music, where there is a consistent beat throughout the whole set or something. So if you're introducing new melodies, it's not a big deal because they've got such a foundation.
Right.
With this kind of music that's, a little bit, I don't know, more eclectic or rhythmically a little bit more varied. If you can play a song they've never heard before that they can come along to, but they're into it, that's really validating.
So, Zach, you've been very generous with your time. Do you have a few more moments to answer a couple more questions?
Yeah, totally.
Great.
Yeah, actually, I want to congratulate you. This is your first solo tour, yeah?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about it, how that came about.
Well, it's not so solo. I mean, I have some awesome buddies coming out with me. So I got to credit, Mern, Alexander Lewis, Lumberjack for coming along, helping move some of these tickets and fill these rooms. But yeah, I mean, there's, it's always like a timing question when you kind of set off on your own to do a headlining tour. You don't want to do it too soon because, it looks really bad if you can't sell the tickets. You don't want to sour any of those relationships with promoters. And it's just important to me. I'm not so eager to do a headline tour, or wasn't, that I, was willing to risk any of that just to massage my ego or something like that. I'm happy playing support roles, but yeah, it felt like it was time with the album and with the arc to see, where are we and what can we do in some of these markets if I was to really curate a show on my own. And it's been really awesome so far. The crowd energy and, the fact that people are really coming out for this kind of music, you're not trying to fit into the headliners demographic is huge. So the shows have been phenomenal. And, in some ways it's going to be hard to go back to play some of these support shows. But yeah, it's been really good.
So if I can interrupt my co-host here for just a moment, you said something about playing support roles versus playing the headliner slot. So when you get to the place that you are now, career-wise, now I'm going to preface this question. We have kind of a healthy debate, I would say, going on amongst some of the listeners of our show who say that especially like the main support role, do you play do you keep it tamped down? Do you play to the crowd? Do you set up the headliner? Or do you take that as an opportunity to bring all that you've got and do you and expect that the promoter has done their job in booking the correct person? So now that you're at this point, do you play drastically differently if you're in a support role versus your touring?
Not drastically differently.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's important, that last point you made, that it's on the promoter.
Yeah.
That I think that fits with some other logic I have, which is, don't get known for doing a job you don't want to do later. And, like in a past career or something, I remember I was really good at video editing and really fast with it, but I didn't want people to know, because the more I did it, the more I'd be asked to do it again. So if you're going out there in a support capacity and you're playing, a really mellow, kind of housey, vibey set, even though you're, much more high energy trap DJ, you're going to start to get known for that. And people are going to be like, oh, we should get this person out to do this thing again. And you're going to have to fill that expectation. So on the other hand, you don't want to go out there and just, play R.L. Grimes' best hits right before the headliner trap DJ comes on. That's a balancing act. And you just have to say, like, there's competing interests here. There's the headliner's interest to not have something too high energy before their set. There's your interest to play your music in the set that is representative of, your best performance. There's the audience interests, which is to give them a good time. And then there's promoters' interests, which is to sell tickets. And you just have to decide who's most important and who am I going to most risk disappointing. I've been in situations where I really held myself back a little bit, because what was most important for me was making sure the headliners were really happy. Just on a human level, because I appreciated them, and also at a career level, because, I want to be brought back out. That being said, I'm not going to change so drastically that, again, I'm being asked to do something that isn't really me. Now, the fortunate thing about being a producer and making your own music is no one's ever going to ask you not to play your own music. That's highly inappropriate. So if you make all bangers and they're all originals, I'd be shocked if a headliner said, hey, could you take these songs out of your set? Because you're like, well, that's my music. So it's kind of on you. You brought me out.
Yeah, what am I even doing here?
Yeah, so when in doubt, if you want to play, more high energy music as an opener, well, just write those songs.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Tony. I cut in there.
Oh, no. I lost track where I was. In the DJ world, who influences you?
Can I reframe that and say in the producer world?
Absolutely.
There's a ton. People like R.L. Grime, obviously. Big names like Rusty had been huge. That was some of the first music I heard that really, caught my attention. Hudson Mohawk. Some of the early UK dubstep stuff. Yeah. And then, a lot of my peers and people that are kind of at my level as well. People like Graves, Alexander Lewis, Slumberjack. Like, these people that I'm on tour with, I'm bringing them because they're inspiring for me. And then, there's so many people that I can't even really name because they're just, super new, that I just like cruising through SoundCloud and get super inspired by people that, are just completely unknown so far. So, it's tough. And then, conversely, I'd say, most of my inspiration comes outside of electronic music, though. Or I'm kind of listening to electronic music to see, how do I take this other sounds and make it electronic now? How do I hear some, Bulgarian folk music and make that palatable to an EDM audience? And then I'll start digging through electronic music to pick up things, pick up the structure, pick up some ideas, but the core of it came actually outside of EDM.
So what do you like to listen to just on your quote-unquote days off? The way we've been framing this for interviews is what's on your iPod.
It's, I make EDM all day. And at the end of the day and on the weekends, I listen to stuff that is so different because I need to just kind of reset and just cleanse my palate. So it's really minimal music, kind of modern classical music.
Oh, okay.
It's a piano player like Nils Fromm, composers like Arvo Part, some really chill stuff. But I'm still kind of listening to it to steal chords and samples a little bit in the back of my head when I hear things. But yeah, it's really mellow stuff for the most part.
Oh, that's
you
cool.
know, a lot of like R&B and things like that.
Yeah. So your most recent album, which was Fallout, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Came out in what, October-ish, something like that.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah. So
exactly. October.
yeah. So tell us a little bit about what's it like to construct a full album. Like, do you take that same approach? You know, you're really concerned about the general experience and the aesthetic and the overall package. So I assume all of that goes into your considerations when making an album and how you order your tracks and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And you know, part of the hardest part was kind of cutting music from it. That music I still loved, but didn't feel like it was part of the package. Music I still wanted to put out, but didn't feel like it matched the overall experience. But sometimes less is more. I mean, it started with a few songs that really captured the aesthetic I was going to, and then it just kind of built out pretty organically from there. It actually originally was intended to just be a little EP, but it kept growing. And yeah, it was surprising to release so many songs at once for me, because I've never done something like that. I was worried that the reception, it was like people's attention would be thinned out. But I found it was the opposite. People really engaged with the story of it. People really engaged with it as a collection. I feel like even more than putting out singles. So it's definitely something that I took away from feeling like, you know, this is in some ways a better way to deliver an overall experience. Singles are great, remixes are great. I'm still doing all that stuff, but you know, a lot of my energy is now towards putting together these bigger experiences, which would be like an LP. You know, and then after releasing it as a producer, there's like a little deflation moment, I guess, that I went through where I was really deterred from writing similar music, and still kind of am, because so much energy was put into this collection that, you know, as someone that always wants to be doing new things, and I think that's pretty common in, you know, the producer world. You put out 10 songs that sounds like you,
right?
And you feel like, oh shit, like I need to let this go now. And there's pain that comes with that, but then I feel all this permission now to really branch out. And the music I'm writing now is still me and feels in the same family, but it's definitely the next generation of offspring for sure.
So when you're putting Fallout together, did you have an overall vision in mind for the album and then you just started making it and you kind of made it in order like that? Or was it like, I have 30 songs and I'm going to pick out the however 10 or 12 or however many there are that fit the concept?
I always have like 30 songs, but it started with a mood and an idea. And, you know, I resist trying to articulate it too much in words or describe it, because it's just a feeling. Like
that's fair.
You have a sense, you know, you could make a collage of like clips from movies or other songs or aesthetics or photos to capture it, but it was just a mood. And without overthinking it, of course, I went through old demos and said, you know, is there anything I can pull out to build on? Because I always have, you know, 100 unfinished songs, just sketches sitting around. But most of it was written, you know, new for the album. It started out with, again, a few demos that I'd started that felt like a family and inhabited this kind of sonic mood that I was really into. And then it was just about building it out.
On your tour, your Fallout tour, tell us what to expect. Is it a full produced tour? Visually, no?
No. I mean, visually, yes. So there's a baby crying. Do you want me to try to walk somewhere?
We can hear you okay.
We can hear you fine.
Okay, cool. All right, good. As long as you guys can hear me. It's a modest production. You know, there's visual packages, but the emphasis was on small rooms that we could fill out and could keep that energy level and the crowd engagement really high. And, you know, so these aren't going to be spots where you can bring in huge production and things like that. So there's that trade-off there, right? If you target larger venues, you can invest more in, you know, what you put on stage. But unless you're filling those venues, you know, you've just put a bunch of investment into your stage production and the venue's, you know, a quarter, half full or something like that, and it's not going to feel the same. So the focus here was small rooms. You know, I can spend time out in the crowd. I can come out afterwards and hang with people. People feel close to the music and the stage. And so I think that it's a really fun experience and it's really interactive. And that's how I wanted my first headline tour to be, because, you know, these are like core fans. These are people that have been with me for a while. I didn't have some huge singular cosign and suddenly there's like thousands of people showing up to my shows. So it was important to respond to that, to give them something that I know they would appreciate and take away from.
Once again, the album, KRANE's album is called Fallout. You can check it out at cranemusic.com. You can stream it on Spotify, but if you like it, please consider buying it to support our artist here. Is there anything else that you would like to talk about or plug before we let you get on your way?
Just to tell people to keep an eye out for shows that, especially this Headline the Fallout tour if it's coming to your city, because, again, we're trying to do something unique, and I think it's an opportunity to be really close to the music and to, meet me and the other acts that are coming out. And, if you want to support me, that's the number one way, and hope you'll come out to some shows. And, thanks for talking with me. Appreciate this.
Absolutely. It's been a wonderful conversation, and we appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to chat with us.
No problem.
All right, that wraps up our interview with KRANE. Now, Tony and I were super excited to be able to talk with him. He's just a lot of fun to talk to, very articulate, and you can tell he's very passionate about his craft. And, that's exactly what Passionate DJ is all about. Now, for those of you who are not familiar, the Passionate DJ podcast is a weekly talk show dedicated to the art and science of mixing music. So every Monday we come out with a new episode similar to the one that you just heard. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast app, or hit up passionatedj.com and don't miss a single episode. All right, bye-bye. We'll see you next time.